Eddie Reyes. We're honored to have them. They have come here to talk to us about sanitation issues, kind of how sanitation works and how we can work with them in a way to improve our neighborhood. Our sanitation is very important for our health, and also we're very concerned about the appearance of our neighborhood. And these are the guys who make it all happen. Mr. Gillespie, Mr. Reyes, if you're willing to come up here and...
Up to you. Okay. Oh, good evening, everybody. I'm Cliff Gillespie. I'm the Director of Sanitation for the city. We're on a listening tour the last few months, and we'll be for the next several regarding the alley issue, which one or two of you have probably heard about. Some of you may be here tonight just for the sole reason to give me a piece of your mind. If you'll raise your hand.
It looks like the usual suspect.
This is the usual crowd? Okay, good. Sometimes it's a real beating, if I'm being honest. Who's familiar with the alley collection issue that sort of was in the news back in June, July? It kind of bubbled up again in August.
To alley or not to alley?
To alley or not to alley, yes. Yeah. So let me just give a little background for those of you that aren't familiar. And if you don't hate me now, you'll hate me in a few minutes. So back in June, I gave a briefing to the City Council on our garbage and recycle collection process, which 38% of the city is collected from alleyways, 62% of the city is collected from the curbside. And we really have a big problem with alleys, and we've had a problem with alleys for probably easily 40 years, about that long. Garbage trucks are just too big for alleyways, particularly those alleyways that are 8-foot and 9-foot wide pavement. You probably see that most commonly with like rutting along the side of the pavement in your location. You may see chunks of utility poles taken out from our mirrors or back steps on our trucks.
Fence going down.
Hitting fences, gas meters, common, hitting the utility poles and bringing them down, or hitting the guy wires, bringing the poles down, or sometimes a wire is sagging and we bring the wires down and catch the trucks on fire and catch the fences on fire, and our people run for their lives. And the people on the back of the trucks, they're faced with these really tight operating conditions. We had one just today, and they happen more than we'd like to think possible, but a helper on the back of the truck, it was in this area, I don't believe it was your neighborhood, but somewhere in this area. The truck got a little too close to the utility pole in the alley as he was passing by, and he was hanging on the back step, and he got pinched between the utility pole and the truck as it was going by, and pinched him, knocked him off. Went straight to the hospital. I don't know what his current condition is. We had one 2 weeks ago. Similar tight situation between the truck and the fence. And the truck inched forward just a little bit and caught the blue roll cart and brought the guy down, and the truck rolled over his foot. I briefed this to the City Council, told them the history of why our alleys are the way they are, why we have 8, 9, and 10-foot alleys, and brought forward to them a recommendation that over time we phase out of alleyways. For a day or two, the City Council was like, yes, we have to do this, until residents started to get wind of it. So at this point, we never put a timeline on it, but if there was the possibility of a time, I suggested a timeline, but we never firmly established one. But even that draft of a timeline, we've just put on pause, and we said, okay, we're going to take the next 6 months or so and just I'm going to come to meetings like this. I'm going to tell you what our situation is, get your feedback, get your suggestions. A lot of things, a lot of possible solutions we've sort of workshopped and talked through, but maybe there's something out there that we haven't considered yet. So want to give you a little bit more history, and then I'm going to stop talking and sort of give you all an opportunity to respond. And if we want to talk about other sanitation related things like bulk and brush or recycling or composting or something like that, I'd love to talk about those things as well. But if I can back up and tell you the history of how we got to where we are today. Many Dallas neighborhoods like yours were built before, I suspect y'all's homes were probably built in the 60s, 50s, 60s. So in the 50s and 60s, there were not much in the way of federal regulations regarding solid waste. Actually, there were none. There were many open air dumps around town, and there were burn pits and stuff like that. So all the way into the 70s, smaller garbage trucks were just taking garbage to the neighborhood dump and tossing it in and filling it in eventually. It was in the mid-1970s when a bunch of federal regulations started to come into effect. So it was 1976, I believe, when commercial motor vehicles could be built up to 8.5 feet wide. Before then, commercial vehicles could only be built to 8 feet wide, which matches many alleyways built around the same time. So alleyways in almost every location in y'all's area are 8 feet wide, except for, I think there's a block like right here that the map says is 10 feet wide. So trucks started getting wider, and federal solid waste regulations went into effect that started banning the types of dumps that the country had used up until then. So it was 1975 or 76 when Dallas opened McComas Bluff landfill down in far southeast Dallas, and we developed a network of transfer stations. We started seeing garbage trucks getting bigger, along with every other type of commercial vehicle, to hold more material. In the case of garbage, they had longer to haul. So in the 80s and 90s, that's when the fleet started turning over, getting wider, and that's when probably the rutting started. People ask me, well, what's changed now? Why are you bringing this up now? Well, we've been causing the damage the whole time. It's just coming out of the pandemic, as the price of everything got more expensive, lead times, supply chain issues got longer, and personnel got more expensive as we were damaging these trucks, whereas we used to just send them to the shop every night and sort of Frankenstein them back together after ripping off mirrors and steps every day and injuring people. That was just sort of seen as the cost of doing business. It's not so much viable anymore. In the last 10 years, the sanitation rate has almost doubled, and I hate to say it, but there's not much end in sight. Temporary labor, the people on the back of the trucks, the cost in the next couple of years will go up quite a bit more. The cost to repair trucks and do all that continues to go up, and it's slower. It's not as quick as it used to be. If you'll remember, maybe about 2 years ago now, in 2022, we had a real issue with getting trucks repaired, and so you probably noticed your recycling being picked up late repeatedly. Well, that was because we couldn't get trucks repaired. So all that is to say, that's all the bad news. The good news is we can do better. We can control the rate, the sanitation rate. I can't promise you that we can lower it. We can certainly slow the growth of the rate. And we can make the work safer. We can do less damage to your alleyways, to the streets. There's automated garbage collection. That's the trucks that have one person driving it and operating an automated arm that collect the cart, dump it, and put it down. Just can't do it from the alleyway. I have to do it from the curb. So I know it looks like the east side of your neighborhood has front driveways, so that helps. I know it's not anything that anybody wants to do. The other side of your neighborhood, the west side, I know you all, almost all of you, except maybe some with circle drives, all have rear entry access, and that's where I really understand frustration, maybe anger about the possibility of switching it, because you don't have an easy way to. Well, you have to wheel your cart through your grass, and I know that's not anything that anybody wants to do. So I don't have a magic answer for that. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Eddie, is there anything sort of that missed in the big points? I mean, we'll probably drill down into more detail with questions, but.
Well, just that people can't even get the bulk pickup once a month. They're not going to do any better with once a week on trash, pulling it out to the end of the curb.
Tell me about your problem with the bulk trash.
Well, people say that all the time.
Yeah.
If they came through today to pick up and half the people hadn't put it out there, they received notice, but they didn't put it out in time.
Oh, they didn't put it out, and so now the trucks are gone by and they'll put it out after the trucks.
We just
Trucks
that was
are
something that happened with
gone,
the trash.
It's working its way. Yeah, but, and I guess the problem with enlarging the alley is the fact that people are probably sitting here or something.
Well, so the problem with putting down more pavement, like widening the pavement, is that the total right-of-way that the city owns is still limited, right? And so the cart is 3 feet deep. They're probably already right up against the fence as it is, which the city code says they're supposed to be a foot behind the cart, between the fence and the cart, essentially. We know in most cases that's not able to happen. Yeah. So widening the pavement.
Could there be collection points?
Hmm?
Could there be collection points?
Like grouped collection points? That's something that we're open to.
How are you going to get it there?
You know,
Well, if it could be at the end of the alley.
if you don't, so
I just assume when it across my yard that I have to go down the alley. Do we all take it down to the end of the alley?
Yeah, but you have a driveway, so in your case, you would need it for the places that
No, I don't have to. In order to keep my garbage can from going hello to the neighborhood, I have to run it through my grass.
Oh, right, because yours is
Yes,
on the side
because,
of the
yeah, so.
but on the issue with set out timing, I'm sure y'all do. Y'all are a neighborhood association. You come to these meetings, so you probably have like the city app, and you probably report stuff to 311, and
Yes.
people do it anyway. I would just advise as much as you can. Don't feel like you're being a tattletale. I mean, that's how you get your neighbors in line. Is they get a ticket or two, and they'll stop doing it. It's a pricey ticket with bulk set
Can I
out.
get a warning first?
No.
No?
Now, sometimes a code inspector will be, so I don't enforce that, the Department of Code Compliance does.
But now,
We-
code compliance generally is on all of our meetings.
Okay.
It's
Good.
unusual for them not to
So-
be there, so we know that if we want them to, they will do it.
So most of the time they don't. So sometimes you'll have a soft-hearted code inspector who will write them a warning for something else. But their policy is there's no warning for early brush set out or late brush set out. It's automatically a ticket. I think it's like $300 or something. So I'd say that's the,
Yeah, I guess
that's the only way people are going to learn sometimes.
So what about houses that have 5 cars parked like back to back? There's no room to get to their trash can?
Yeah. So we collect garbage from the curb in most areas of the city. So our drivers know how to maneuver around parked cars. During the day, we don't normally see it as big of a challenge because people go to work during the day, and so we're, it's not quite as tight. In those areas where it might be, where, I don't know, you have people working from home, or it's a multi-generational home, and grandparents or whoever are still there during the day, those areas usually pretty quickly figure out, if they don't move their cars or they don't place their cart in the right place, it's not going to get collected. So those sorts of issues work themselves out pretty quickly. Yes, sir.
What did you all come up with for people who physically can't pull a heavy cart through the grass from the alley to because that's going to be a factor? What have you heard, or what are you brainstorming about how to handle that?
So we have a long-standing program already in place. It's been around, I don't know, I think there's probably some state or federal, I don't know that it's a requirement, but I think there might be something that incentivizes us to do it. So we call it a Helping Hands program. Other cities call it other things. It's a service for those customers that are physically disabled without an able-bodied person living in the home. So anybody who's physically unable to wheel the cart out to the curb and there's nobody else living in the home to be able to do that, we can enroll you in the program. does require a doctor's statement. And there's no additional cost. So our drivers have tablets. They're following their routes via tablet in their truck. When they come across a Helping Hands customer, it alerts them to it. They stop the truck, get out, pull the cart from wherever the prearranged location is at the side of the home, empty it, and return it back to where they got it. So that's how we assist our those customers that need that additional help. Actually, a secret is we'll provide that service to anybody, but if you're not physically disabled, you just have to pay extra for it.
If what?
If you're not physically disabled, if you don't qualify for the program through Helping Hands, we'll provide the service for a fee.
How much?
It's not cheap. I believe it's $132 a month.
Huh?
So we're providing that at no cost to our physically disabled customers. So some other things
I
that.
got a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, do you all have a definition written for physically disabled? Because the doctor is going to have to, like if you have a back issue or what, there's got to be a definition, right?
It matches, I believe it matches the state requirement for handicap placard for a vehicle, for a motor vehicle.
So if you do away with the alleys, you'll pick up, I'm still going to have alleys because all those cars that go down there and park back in the back. So, so I guess the gas would stay back there and.
Yeah, nothing, in fact, I would hope that the conditions of your alleys improve as our trucks stop driving through them. I mean, obviously residents need to maintain their vegetation, but our the city's fleet director said yesterday that our 66,000-pound trucks passing over alley pavement, which is not as thick as the street, is the equivalent. One pass is the equivalent of 19,000 cars. I haven't done that math to see if that makes sense, but
I'm sure they did a whole.
Wear and tear, basically.
yeah. So our trucks are tearing up the alleys, and then the city, just does not have the resources to maintain the alley pavement. If there's a choice between, maintaining the neighborhood streets or the alleys, the city's going to spend the money on the streets. So don't let me scare you. There's no immediate plans. What I had initially briefed to the city council was a 12-month plan starting this coming January and moving out of 8-foot alleys in January of 2026. That's on hold at this point. I would say if we're going to pull out of alleys wholesale, it would be sometime later in 2026. Now, let me caution though, we have an existing criteria for pulling out of alleys whenever there's some sort of repeat issue, or we call some sort of major damage, or there's an injury. We do have sort of criteria in place to pull out of an alley immediately if we need to. So I should have driven through those alleys before the sun went down when I came over here, but I didn't get a chance.
Well, I can tell you the alley behind our house is 9 feet, and we are right here. And they just recently upgraded this alley, and it's 10 feet.
So let me ask you, this is 10 feet?
This one, the new alley, is 10 feet.
Anyway, is the whole block 10 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
But they're still putting their trash cans out front.
Right.
I don't know why.
Because of the construction.
Maybe we haven't received notice that construction.
Well, that's the question, and I've received it from people who cannot come here, is kind of how long do I have to take my trash out front?
Well, I question if I need to see that, because if the pavement is suddenly 10 feet, but the alley, if the right-of-way is no wider than it was before, that's maybe not going to be the permanent solution for that alley. I mean, we'll go back for now, but we'll...
Will you collect in both locations if we don't know?
So we'll provide a grace period. So what we'll do generally is send notice saying, okay, we're moving back to the alley, and then we'll do a week or two of collecting from both. just to make sure we cover anybody who may have missed the message.
Right.
So let me go through some of the things that I hear, common things, just to address them in case you think about them later. Hear frequently, oh, well, what about, hitting, there's the parked cars, hitting parked cars, mailboxes. You're not happy, but you understand.
Well, let me ask one question. As long as there are those workers hanging on the back, it seems that's where the injuries
That is
are
where the
going to
injuries
occur.
are.
And so if we go to the front where they just pick it up from the front, there are no workers hanging from the back. That's all.
No, they are hanging from the side.
Well, the plan would be as those, if we were able to move to the curb, the plan would be as that type of truck ages out of the fleet, we would replace it with the automated truck. So we would.
Your labor force would go down.
Correct. So right now we use 100, so going back up, in total, we have 156 routes a day, garbage and recycle plus brush. We have 230 truck drivers. We have 160 laborers that are working in the back of the trucks. The goal with this, if we were able to do like the whole city, would be to do away with that workforce. It's a dangerous job. It's consistently in the top 10 most dangerous jobs on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, top 10 most deadly jobs. There are jobs on that list that are absolutely necessary. This job is not one of them. We need to find better, safer work for these people to do.
I think we're gonna.
Who's going to go back and get the trash cans that, under the agreement, the program, what's it called, for the disabled?
The helping hands. The driver. The driver stops
So
the
the
truck.
driver stops the truck and get.
And so that's what happens currently with the 62% of the city that's served from the curb that we use the automated trucks now. That's already happening. So yes, a lot of the savings will come from reducing the labor. Also, the automated trucks just work a lot quicker. So the best example I have is the northern side of the city is where we have most of our alleyway service. We still have some alleys on the southern side, but just not nearly as many. We have 42% more trucks working in the north than we do in the south, with an equal population or equal customer division between the north and the south. And that's because the trucks going through the alleys just work a lot slower, so we can reduce the size of the fleet, reduce the size of the labor force. That's where savings will come in. It would happen over a period of years, so it's hard to say that the rate would go down. We have a rate study currently looking at that, but we could guarantee that the growth of the rate would certainly slow quite a bit.
What
Now-
about the rate?
Yeah.
The rate.
What you're billing me every month?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'd love to lower the rate for you. As we phase this, if we're able to succeed on this and phase it in over 5 years, the rate, the price of labor, the price of everything continues to go up while we're cutting in other areas. So it's just where does it fall?
Now, I'm guessing that the 38%, would be the older, it's the older part of the city, so it's like more in the inner part of it, is it?
If I had actually, I'm going to give you all a link to pull up a map where you can see them. No, there's alleys in newer parts of the city. It's just after, the 1970s, the alleys started being constructed or sometime in the mid-1970s, alleys started being constructed with 9 and 10 foot wide pavement. So a lot of Lake Highlands, you see 10 foot wide alley pavement. Far North Dallas, 10 foot wide.
Well, we know the neighborhood north of us has wider alleys.
Yes. But they're about 20 years younger than us.
Yeah.
I will say some areas in like Preston Hollow, some of the just biggest houses you see in town have some of the absolute worst, narrowest alleys. So it, you know,
And no sidewalks.
and no sidewalks. So there's no I haven't found much of a correlation between, you know, the size or condition of alleys and the, you know, the neighborhood.
Except for age.
Yeah. So,
I want to give you a compliment, actually. Our garbage can disappear. It had a broken wheel that may have been, I don't know, maybe the crew took it, I don't know. But I went on the 311 app and you guys brought us a new garbage can for the next collection period. It was like 2 days.
I know, they were replace your damage.
Yeah, and it was fast.
You just had to do it. You just have to ask for it.
Yeah,
It's in a few days.
Yeah, but it was really fast service, and I was a little worried. And so that, hats
Well,
off.
let me ask, kind of relate to this, me and my wife walk the neighborhood, and so we see bins that need to be replaced. And one thing I thought, if we carried around a sticky that said you can get your bin replaced at 311, but I mean, would that be okay with you guys, or?
I mean, if it needs to be replaced, our crews will come out and they evaluate it. If they don't think it needs to be replaced, they're not going to do it. So before they replace a bin, generally, they've got spare parts, so we can replace lids, wheels, axles. So we're going to try and fix it before they replace it.
I've never seen any fix. They obviously continue to replace. But Jimmy, some of ours have no wheels. Some of them have no lids.
When they live in the alleys, a lot of residents just, you know, they don't ever move them. They don't care. So.
Yeah, they don't. Well, I know I told one lady who came out, and I told her she could call 311 to get it, and she said, "Oh, I figured they would charge me." And she called and got one right away. She was so excited about it.
Good to hear. Yes, ma'am. You have a question.
With using the alley, I may see that it's supposed to rain for the next 3 days, so I put my bins out, 4 days early, just leave them there. Is there going to be some kind of a standard if we go to curbside as to, how many days ahead can you put them and how many days after do you have to put it back, take it out?
Absolutely, it's a great point. So for curbside collection, carts can be placed out no earlier than 6 p.m. the day before collection and must be removed from the curb by 7 a.m. the day after collection. Removed from the curb, put back to a point at the side or rear of the home. So it's not much time, but people don't want to see the garbage can out on the street all week. So that's another thing, and thank you so much. We were just talking about you.
Sorry, I'm late. Sorry.
No. So we were talking about, it came up with bulk trash. People setting out material either too early or too late, and they question about, do they get a warning first? And so I gave what I think is the answer, but why don't you tell them what the official answer is?
So first and foremost, I met a few of you all at the National Night Out, but I am one of the supervisors for Northwest Neighborhood Code. I am still getting acclimated with the city of Dallas versus city of Fort Worth. So it's really different, especially when I answer the phone. I'm so used to saying city of Fort Worth. I'm like, oh, no, sorry, city of Dallas, I'm sorry, take that back. But in regards to bulky trash, if you do set it out too early, city ordinance does not say that we have to even give a warning, courtesy. We don't have to knock on your door. We don't have to do anything. We immediately issue a citation. What we do is we will leave a door hanger and we will give you 24 hours to either remove it or either haul it out. But that only goes one time per year. So, yeah. So, and just saying, February of this year, one of your neighbors set out their bulky trash too early. If we go out tomorrow and it's still set out,
We don't learn from that?
yes, we will issue a civil citation if we can't make contact with someone, but if we do make contact, we are required to issue a criminal citation.
I actually believe that some of them just don't know that they're time limit.
And then it's contagious. You see your neighbor, you're like, oh,
That's
this
exactly.
time.
Well, and
They see somebody else's out, and then they start putting theirs out, and
one of the problems happens when we have a month with a fifth Monday.
yes.
So
You can't beat that.
everybody says, oh, I'm a first week customer, second week customer, third week customer. we've really pushed hard to try to change the terminology that we use internally, because the more accurate way to describe it would be, I'm a first Monday week customer, second Monday week customer.
I've got it, but a lot of people can't speak. When the week starts on a Tuesday,
Yeah. So
they don't get
if
it.
there's a fifth Monday in a month, there are no bulky item collections, so then people start setting out early. It throws everybody off for the whole month. So we try hard to push out notices, but some people get them. Some neighborhood associations are the most effective tool we have in our arsenal, because people are more likely to get the message from you all through social media than they are through our social media or contact.
Yes, and we are somewhat motivated to clean it up because the bulky trash looks trashy out there. It's out there for too long.
Speaking of, so as far as bulk and brush, mostly brush, Webb Chapel, and Andy, I know you guys have seen that. We see each other in the morning a lot. Webb Chapel, they put their stuff on that sidewalk along there, and it becomes a health hazard. Because if you've got older people trying to go around and you incidentally have to get on Webb Chapel, we all know how people are, driving about 70 miles down that damn road, or kids, the boat never seems to go anywhere. They never seem to pay any type of, there's no ramification around that. It seems like.
Are you saying it doesn't get picked up?
It doesn't get picked up. It will stay there until, yeah.
But that's not really probably a place supposed to do that, although they do pick up on the side streets, but I don't know about Webb Chapel.
We'll coordinate, because there might be a couple of problems. So code is going to enforce it from their perspective, but from our perspective, it's not being picked up. Are there houses facing Webb Chapel, or are these side? Yeah.
It's the side.
So
I'm guessing they're not supposed to put it there, but someone still.
So it's dangerous for our trucks to stop, but it should be getting reported at least, so that we can make contact with the customers and tell them, hey, look, this has got to go in front of your home.
It's usually more, what I see is more branches and things that get stuck there. And no one ever cleans that sidewalk.
So
I keep thinking of every, when the lottery, which I'm not even entering anymore, I would pay for someone to go and clean that up regularly.
how much longer do I have the floor?
This is great.
I want to get a quick plug in while I've got a captive audience and we're talking about.
It has been really great. I mean, it has been very interesting.
So on brush, let me switch gears on you real quick and talk about composting. So right now, our brush and bulky item collection program, all those materials get collected in one truck, straight to the landfill. So all that vegetative waste, landfilled. I wish I had the numbers off the top of my head, but it's an insane amount of vegetative waste that just gets buried and takes up space in the landfill. We're in the process right now of determining an exact location on the landfill site to start a commercial scale composting program. With it's like 50-acre site. Actually, it's bigger than that. I think it's 50 acres for windrows. Initially, because we're collecting all that material at the curb commingled, we won't be able to do anything about that. We're going to get the program set up, and then we're going to invite commercial haulers or whoever wants to bring it in to bring it to us for a cheaper rate than they would pay to dispose of it in the landfill. But in time, the goal is to change the brush and bulky item program so that we can collect the vegetative waste separately and compost it versus landfilling it. The problem, and we're going to save this fight for another time down the road, is if we're collecting it commingled right now and I want to collect it separately, that means I'm going to have to change something about the way the program is currently structured. Because if you're setting it all out in 1 month, even if you set it out in 2 piles, that means I'm going to need a second truck going by.
But there used to be a little truck that was one of the old-fashioned kind of things that would run down the front and pick up the bags.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that recently, but there used to be that.
Yeah, and those folks are usually just helping, trying to clear some of the volume off, but most of the time the brush is being picked up with the grapple trucks. Yeah. So we've piloted a couple of different options. Nobody likes any change when it comes to messing with their garbage, but what we piloted was alternating months or maybe the options are we could alternate brush months and then bulky item pickup months.
Because when you get brush, it's because you just storm and things, and you got trees and stuff, you can't.
Sure, if there were a storm, we would have to make some exceptions, but you'd be surprised how some people, or a lot of people are setting out brush every month.
Well, if you've got 4 trees that are about to fall on your house, and you've got to take, I'm not kidding, I had one. Okay, so I've got massive
Every month.
debris, so I'm trying to fit within your sanctions. So, I'm going to have something every month because I'm going to work with my arborist.
Well, this is an example of why it's hard to make these changes because.
But even if I don't have that, just regular trimming, I go to level my shrubs and all that, where am I going to put it that it's not going to destroy other parts of my yard? The May incident, when we had all the shear winds and all that came through, 2 months before you came to pick up just my tree limbs. I cannot get that corner to come alive again.
Me neither, I have that problem.
It's
Well, let me talk about some other options. Maybe one of these other options would be better suited. So I talked about alternating months. We could do, potentially we could do monthly brush collection with once a quarter bulky item pickup. So most people are setting out brush more frequently than they're setting out bulky waste, couch, or whatever. That's a little bit more feasible for us to do. And another option would be monthly brush with on-call bulky service. Say you got 2 or 4 bulky item pickups a year at no cost. You can use them whenever, and you call us. We won't come get it right then. We'll schedule you for sometime within a week period and get that. That may be best suited for a lot of things. But trying to get people on board on something is hard. But ultimately, you know, the life of the landfill is important as the region continues to grow. We say we have about 30 years of life left in the landfill at McComas Bluff. The landfills in the North Texas region, not factoring in our landfill, have less than 10 years of life left in most of them. So that means as the region's continuing to grow and landfill space and other landfills is filling up, we're going to see more pressure on Dallas's landfill. So we've got to do what we can to extend that and do what's right for the environment and keep and find reuse for this material. So I'm just, at this point I've only talked about vegetative waste, but composting also requires food waste, well, food or other sources of nitrogen. That would be even further down the road.
Paper towels.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So I keep hearing that the recycle doesn't really get recycled. Can you tell me what the reality is? My son just says you're wasting your time because it doesn't really get recycled. What's the truth?
Sure. Everything is, there's not a black and white answer to anything. The material that you put in your blue recycle bin, if it is recyclable, it absolutely gets recycled. So there is the recycling facility is co-located on the city property at McComas Bluff Landfill. We can arrange a tour for the neighborhood association, and y'all can go view it from the observation deck and watch them in action, separating the materials and bundling them for sale. What am I trying to say? Somebody help me out. Baling them. There we go. Baling them for resale. The facility is privately owned and operated. It's a public-private partnership. They're selling those materials on the open commodity market, depending on, so they're getting different prices every day based on what they're baling. The problems with residential recycling come in with contamination and other stuff that's just not recyclable. So right now, for residential recycling, we calculate probably last year was about an 18% diversion rate. So of all the material we collected between garbage and recycling, 18% was diverted was captured as recycling. Of that material, somewhere around 20 to 24% of that material put in recycle containers was contamination. So one person puts in a 2-liter Coke or something without the lid on it, or even with the lid on, it's going to get busted. You know, it's going to ruin everything in that, and it's probably going to ruin a lot of stuff around it. Somebody puts in food or just uses the container as their another garbage cart.
I see people just doing all sorts of
Right.
things in it.
It can contaminate an entire.
Also, a lot of people think that you put it out front, it's still recycled. So like, you know, I have to see things that should be put on the curb, it should be put in the recycling thing, and they're not. So, I mean, there's a, you know, we spent a lot of time in Oregon at one time, and I tell you, they give you tickets for everything, and you put anything, put one glass in your plastic thing, you get a warning. And they're very serious about it, kind of stuff, and they have special containers for glass, and I mean, they have like 4 different kinds of recycled things, and they really enforce it.
That's absolutely right. And then plastics, so most questions around recycling that boils down to, and what you're probably hearing most about, is what's happening to plastics. And a lot of stories out there about plastics aren't recyclable and this and that. And the truth is somewhere in the middle on that. So a lot of plastics, clean, dry plastics, are recyclable, but a lot of plastics just aren't recyclable because of what was in them or what they're used for. Chemical containers, food containers that are, you know, have food waste on them that can't easily be removed. Those, in most cases, are just not easily recyclable, and it's cheaper to discard those. So, you know, the plastics industry, I think, has been untruthful in a lot of their marketing that says this is recyclable and that's recyclable. If it's clean and dry and it's the 1 to 7, except styrofoam, it is recyclable through our program, with some exceptions.
So 5 is recyclable?
I don't recall what 5 is. I just know our guidance from
1 to 7?
1 to 7, except styrofoam. Now, there are certain instances. The one that comes to mind immediately are corrugated plastic yard signs, political election yard signs, right? It fits in, I don't know what number it is, but the plastic is recyclable, but the way it's constructed would jam up the equipment at the sorting facility, so they can't recycle those. We have put out in the media that, you know, if you bring them to us at our transfer stations, we are manually bundling those and sending them to a place that will recycle them. It's just you can't put them in your blue cart because they'll jam the equipment. So I would ask you, don't let this discourage you from recycling. You know, please do. You know, unless you're just not sure about something, then it's probably safer to throw it away. But paper, glass, aluminum.
I want straws to be recyclable.
Well, you know, that's one of the things I just don't, me personally, I don't get what the hubbub is about, because if you've ever seen a landfill, you know, plastic straws are a drop in the ocean with what's thrown away. I think there's a lot.
Well, what I'm hearing is that they get in the water and float down and get out in the rivers and mess with the fish.
If not properly discarded.
That's what the ads say.
So, anyway, besides the alley stuff, there's lots of exciting stuff that we're you know, working on to do our part to save the world. It's tough times right now to try to save the world, but doing what we can.
When you, like, if we switch over to the curb, does the trash go on the sidewalk, the grass part,
great
or
question.
on the street?
Definitely not the sidewalk.
Okay.
So the city code requires that it be just behind the curb line. So are your sidewalks right up against the street, or do you have the grass?
So we're right on,
Mixed.
so we're right on Walnut Hill, so it's like a really busy intersection and people drive really fast down there. So if it gets put on the edge, it's gonna fall over into the street.
Okay. Well, put it where it's not going to do that, and don't block the sidewalk. I mean, if it's a little on the sidewalk, I'm not looking at the code officer, you know, I think it'll be okay, but not in the street. Now, there's always exceptions to every rule. In some areas where we have heavy on-street parking during the day, and that's the only way that the cart can get collected, we do tell customers, not looking at code, if that's the only way it's going to get collected, then don't block traffic, but put it where it can be collected. So I don't think that's a big issue in your neighborhood.
Put it on the street.
I see on the street.
My neighbors all put it on the street.
No, on the yard. Then they put it on the street when they empty it. So you know it's been empty.
Anything from District 6 or Eddie? Same thing from?
Are we District 6?
Yes, we're District 6. Omar
Council
Narvaez,
District 6.
it's represented by Laura Omar back there. We're gracious enough to come all the time. Well, I have I found this to be very informative.
So we'll keep you posted. There's no, I'm sure you'll hear about if any changes do occur. We'll try to reach out to you all if you want us back. Have to come back.
Well, good. Also, I think we need to maybe do some education in our neighborhood. This is like 20, 25 people. There's 400 families in our neighborhood, and I have my mailing list, I have about 100, so it's not everybody.
Well, it sounds like we missed your National Night Out. Did y'all have a?
Yeah, we had a national night.
I hate we missed that. We'll be at the next one.
Next year, yeah, sure. But I understand, I'm getting a better sense for all of the difficulties. I mean, this is a city, it's a bunch of people living in a pretty compact situation, and we need to figure out ways that we can make it livable. I grew up on the country, I'm happy to be living in the city, so. But we do need to figure out how to make this work best, and a lot of the stuff you do, we just are just unaware of. I mean, people just don't know the difficulties there. And I am, personally, I'm particularly concerned about the risk of injury to these workers. I don't think we need to be setting up a situation for them that's dangerous. Well,
if y'all have think of anything, feel free to reach out. Dallas.gov, find the sanitation link. It's dallas.gov/sanitation, takes you directly to my website. But,
and how did you get interested in this field?
Great question. So I'm public administrator by education and trade. So I started with the city 13 years ago in the city manager's office. And then I went to code compliance for a couple of years, and then I spent almost 5 years in arts and culture before coming to sanitation as an assistant director, and I've been the director for a year and a half. So.
What did you always see, just out of curiosity?
You look familiar. I left in 2019. What, do you have a connection?
Yeah, I'm just curious because I know in 2020 OAC started getting millions of dollars of new hotel tax money, and I was going to ask if you were already going by that.
Yeah, well, I was there at the beginning when we first started getting it. I set up all the.
2019, I got 597,000 only, 0.9%.
This is Tim Dickey, who's on the Parks and Recreation Board.
There we go. That's why he looks familiar.
Focus on those millions.
Besides being very handsome and cultured.
There we go. Well, again, feel free, Eddie.
If you have any service issues, trash, recycle, please come see me. I'll take care of your issues if you have any specifics.
Yeah, where we come see you.
Right here.
Yes, Marco.
After the meeting, just do that.
Oh,
I just wanted to add that I want to thank you and your office. It's really made a big difference, especially when it comes to responding to the public that you received. We very responsive, and also you really amped up the Facebook and social media posts because we share that in our newsletter, so it helps us a lot. Even if it's a small graphic of whatever's happening, we share it.
maybe you share TikTok?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gillespie.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.